Coming up on Tech News Weekly, Jennifer Pattison Tuohy of The Verge is here and joins us to talk about her trip to IFA, which is basically Europe's version of CES. Lots of interesting gadgets and gizmos, including a laptop that can pivot to focus on you and follow you around. Why? Well, we'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, a social media network that involves you and you alone, plus a bunch of your AI-generated friends. Then Patrick Holland of CNET stops by to tell us about his review of the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max while showing us the devices. Yes, he's got them in hand. And Paris Martineau of The Information steps in to tell us about Instagram's new Teen Accounts, what they are, how they work, how you get them activated, and when you can expect to see them. All of that coming up on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 354, with Jennifer Pattison Tuohy and me, Mikah Sargent, recorded Thursday, September 19th, 2024. Instagram rolls out Teen Accounts. Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I'm your host, Mikah Sargent, and it is time for that third Thursday of the month when Jennifer Pattison Tuohy of The Verge joins us. Hello and welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Mikah. So happy to be here.
Happy to have you here, and feeling well, it seems, which is great, given that you just attended a conference.
Yes, managed to avoid the conference crowd, and this was European crowd, so it would have been really bad.
Yeah, a lot of plane trips and long plane trips and everything that's involved there. So where'd you go? What conference?
Yeah, so I just got back from IFA, which is the big European tech show that is essentially, the easiest way to think of it is like Europe's version of CES. It's a lot of gadgets, a lot of tech companies, a lot more kitchen stuff and appliances than CES. So we kind of get cool fridges instead of cool cars, which is way up my alley.
I was going to say, I'd rather have the cool fridges. So that's awesome. That would be my version too. Whenever you said appliances, I'm like, tell me more.
Yeah.
I think appliances are so fun and interesting, and a car is a tool for me. So it's just kind of like, I would rather look at the cool appliances. So IFA, where does it take place? Did you say? I'm sorry.
So no, it's in Berlin, Germany. And it's been going for 100 years. This was its 100th event. And if you really want to know, it stands for International Funkausstellung Berlin, which translates to the International Radio Exhibition Berlin. And it started as a radio show, sort of transformed over the years, radio, TV technology, and into now consumer electronics and home appliances. And it's held in the most amazing conference center. It's like a brutalist Berlin building, like very
super German.
Yeah, all very German. And lots of corridors and stairs and little, I probably spent 50% of my time trying to find where I was supposed to be, because it's like a maze, but it's a fun maze. You turn a corner and suddenly you're in this appliance heaven. So it's really fun. They actually had Bryan Adams performing this year. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, all sorts of fun stuff. But it is great for gadgets and tech, and all sorts of interesting news came out of the show. We had a lot of coverage on The Verge. It took place. It ended last week. It's from the 6th of September to the 10th of September. It's quite a long show. And I was there covering everything that I could get my hands on, mainly smart home. There were a lot of things, but some fun stuff was the rotating laptop. That was probably the one that got a lot of attention. Lenovo came out with something called the Auto Twist AI PC, which is like, actually it was like a smart display. It's kind of like the Echo Show 10. As you go up to it, and you give it a command, it'll move and follow you around. So you could go up and say, twist, open, and it'll open the laptop and you can say twist, close, and it will close, or twist. I think this was this was it tracking me. You can see on the video here. So as I moved around, like an Echo Show 10 will do, it tracked me, and it had a little motor in the base there that helped it follow you around. And this was powered by AI, and it was a concept device. So this isn't something you can go out and buy, although honestly, I'm not entirely sure why you would. But
Open, close.
Yeah, open, close.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
accessibility, I can see. But in general, it seemed a little gimmicky. But what is a trade show without
Especially
a really fun
because, like you were saying, you go to CES and you see all these vehicles that never see the light of day. So it's really cool to kind of see that from the tech side of things with this laptop. That was my first thought, is it would be cool for someone who needs help with opening a display, but that is such a small subset that you don't really believe that Lenovo is going to invest in making it a reality. But it is a cool thing to take video of, for sure. So,
well, and they were saying to us that, this is concept, but the main thing here is it's powered by AI. And let me say, that was a theme throughout the show. AI. And this was, the twist was kind of the catch, like that was the thing that caught your attention, but it's the voice assistant that is also, what they were really showing off, like what the capabilities are of being able to talk to your PC. I know you can today with certain voice assistants, but, actually have a more granular control over what your computer's doing. And they said there's areas they're exploring there. So we'll see what they do with it, but it was fun. And we had quite a lot of moving devices. There were twerking robots.
Oh, the good. I'm glad that got its category, for sure.
It was a robot vacuum
that twerked.
That was fun. Yeah. So what the trend that kind of came out of the show was that we're getting a lot closer to robot vacuums that can climb stairs. So that was quite exciting. And so what this was by Shark Ninja, and their new Shark robot vacuum. It can lift itself up, very small amount, but to get over like high transitions. So if you have I have this, where you have kind of a big transition between like a bathroom and a hallway. So a lot of robot vacuums won't make it. This one can kind of lift itself up. It also works, and in this picture, for going over rugs, so to get over like a high pile rug. Basically mean it shouldn't get stuck in your home. And there's, I didn't send you the link, I'm sorry, but I did a TikTok of it they had them twerking on the show floor. So
so it was just to show that it could lift. It wasn't as if it had twerk mode. It was very clever. Or anything like that. Okay.
Unfortunately, you can't get it to do that at home.
Maybe on April Fools, they'll put out a firmware where you can make it do that. That'd be cool.
But then Dreamy also came out with a concept one, which I do have a video of, where it actually has little legs that it pushes up, and it can go over stairs. But the stairs were very long, so you'd have to have very specific type of
I've got the RoboVac stairs in this home.
But it's there. It's like the next step. This is what we've been waiting for in robot vacuums. Being able to get up the stairs, or at least small transitions between, like if you have a split level house with a living room and a kitchen where there's a couple stairs, you don't want to have to buy 2 robot vacuums. Although the price for a robot vacuum that can climb stairs is probably going to be very expensive. Imagine. So you might be better off getting 2. But yeah, that was those were some kind of the fun things. But there were a lot of gadgets, as always. But we talked about appliances. The thing that got me most excited was what LG was doing with their appliances and their smart home. So I wanted to kind of just touch on that. So LG, as everyone knows, is a big electronics appliance company, kind of like Samsung. Samsung has been really big in the smart home for many years, since they bought SmartThings a decade ago, actually this month, which is kind of crazy. And so I've always wondered why LG, which does a lot similar to Samsung, has smart fridges and smart appliances, kind of what their sort of smart home play would be. And they've never really done anything that exciting. They have their ThinQ platform you can control your LG appliances with and do some interesting features. But at the show at IFA, they announced that they are opening their smart home platform. They bought a company called Homey, which is a smart home hub manufacturer, and they've ported its OS to a brand new smart home hub that they're launching called the LG ThinQ On. And that's going to have Thread and Matter and Zigbee. It's like a full-on smart home hub. And then they're applying AI, again, everywhere, to help basically create a more sort of cohesive smart home platform for LG, but they're also opening their APIs to allow their appliances to connect to other platforms and share SDKs, and basically becoming sort of an open smart home platform so that we can finally start to use appliances in our smart home. And this has been an area that's been frustrating unless you're all in on smart things and Samsung, which, you know, that's an open platform to some extent, but Samsung doesn't share its appliances out of its platform. You can get many other devices into smart things and use, you know, have some kind of automation set up with your appliances, but you can't use Samsung appliances in other platforms. And I was really kind of excited to see LG promise to do this. I will just say, they say by the end of this year, the APIs will be open. But interesting, they're not using Matter. Matter does allow appliances to be in the spec now, and they have not decided if they're going to use Matter. But I mean, I know that Matter is still, I think a lot of companies are still on the fence with Matter, which is another, maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. I mean, how much did you see Matter being a focus at IFA? Was it a main kind of, and we also work with Matter, or is that mostly US centric?
No, there was a strong, I'd say the biggest emphasis on Matter at IFA was around energy management, because Europe in particular, and we've discussed this in the past, but, you know, energy management is really important to Europeans because energy costs are so high there, and being anything that helps sort of keep prices down is going to be appealing to consumers. So there was a lot of focus around energy management. But this is a big appliance show, and I went around all the big appliance booths from all the major manufacturers, most of which have some American presence, but a lot of them are European based. But say like Bosch, who has Bosch and Thermador in the States, and Miele was there. I'm trying to think of, so like people like GE weren't there, some of the big US appliance brands, but there was some mention of Matter. I did get to see the first ever Matter fridge. So that was exciting. That was from Bosch. But yeah, I think what with appliances, it's the life cycle and the time. So I was talking to the Bosch, one of the gentlemen that develops Matter for Bosch, or works with the connectivity for Bosch. And he said, you know, it's 2 or 3 years minimum that we're going to be able to cycle through and bring these types of technologies into our appliances. And they've been working on Matter for a while. So I'm not sure that it's necessarily that they're not going to adopt it. I think it's just going to take a long time. Matter's taken a while as it is, but for appliances, I think we just have to go through, you know, a long cycle before we're going to see much benefit in our smart homes.
Yeah, I guess if you have something that you plan to keep in your house for a long time, to put a technology in there that you're not sure is going to be around for the long haul would be kind of troublesome. I could understand how you would want to wait and see before you start to make your basic firmware rely on something. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that there was like a negativity around it, just more we're playing the long game. And Bosch is all in on Matter. They're on the board, or at least high up. And Bosch has Siemens also in Europe, and they have a Matter fridge too. And then Bosch also has Thermador over here. So we may start to see more of that happen in the US in the next few months. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw quite a large appliance presence at CES this year, which we haven't done in the past normally. So that'll be interesting to see. I think this would be the year that we'll get more appliances if we're going to, and they are.
Yes,
fun. I do like appliances.
Oh yeah,
I'm glad you agree.
100% agree. When I moved to California from my home state, I had to sell my washer and dryer that I had purchased maybe like a year before. And it was one of the hardest things I had to do because I loved that washer and dryer. But I was moving into
There's nothing like a good washer and dryer.
So wonderful.
Although one final interesting thing on appliances that did launch at IFA, and I know we will see it at CES, is something called Key. And this is Key Wireless Power. And this is wireless power for the kitchen. So this is from the Wireless Power Consortium, and it's the sister to Qi. So Qi charging is, wireless power charging of batteries. Key is actually wireless power. And what it is you can have cordless appliances in your kitchen, and it will power anything basically all the way up to like an air fryer or a microwave. You would just need no cords. And that was really exciting to see. I've seen some demos of this in the past, but this was the release of the specification of Key wireless power, and they had demos from Medea. There was one of the companies that makes devices for KitchenAid was showing off sort of a demo appliance. So a blender, you just put it on the countertop. You have to obviously have the wireless power device applied to the bottom of your countertop, but you can retrofit it. You don't have to get all new counters. And then you just put your appliance, turn it on, power, turn it off.
Is it induction?
No
what
cords.
is it?
So it is. It's the same technology as induction. And actually, Medea showed off its first induction cooktop that will also work as a Key wireless power device. So you buy an induction cooktop and it will work to power wireless devices. So you wouldn't need to necessarily retrofit your counters. You could just get the induction cooktop and cook and
wow.
So that was really neat. I'm excited to see that come. I mean, again, it's one of those things that's going to take a while to cycle through the appliance cycle. But, and also the interesting thing was they were saying it's only about 10% less efficient than cords.
Really?
So,
I wouldn't
because that's
believe
the thing
that.
you often hear with wireless power. I know. And there's no battery or anything in there. There's no exposed electronics. So your appliances can actually, if they're designed well by the manufacturer, you can put your whole appliance in the dishwasher because there's nothing.
Oh, because it's airtight.
Like, there's no holes. Yeah. So you could just see a really exciting future there.
Oh my goodness. The times of just messing up the kitchen and then not wanting to clean it up afterward are over because I'll just stick it in the dishwasher afterward. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That has me the most excited.
Yeah. So
I'm curious about that because I think about like a stand mixer. That thing needs a lot of power.
Yeah. That would work. They said microwaves, air fryers. Off the top, let me see. I need to call up the article. It's right down here. Yeah. So there is I think it was 2,200.
Wow. Watts. Yeah. No, that does sound right. That's a lot of watts. Your typical microwave that you would have is
2,200.
Is between 1,000 and 1,200.
More than enough. Yeah, for even power-hungry devices like air fryers, in the article that Andrew wrote for us on the power. I have a video that I've done of it. We just haven't published it yet, but I'll share it with you when I do. And it was exciting. Cords are the bane of my life. I have like 2 outlets in my kitchen, so I'm like, and like I have to constantly shuffle things around, and this would just be so smooth.
I want it so bad. I want it so bad. That's so cool. That's what I'll be keeping my eye on. Anything else that you want to mention from IFA, because we do need to take a little break.
Yeah, I know. I mean, lots of stuff, lots of gadgets, lots of charging phone stuff. 12 South has a new charger that has a built-in Find My. That's the first one with Find My. That was kind of fun. And then we're seeing some more wireless charging pucks with fans built in.
Cooling.
I don't know if you've noticed this, and I noticed this going around IFA, that my phone, whenever I had my MagSafe battery attached to it, would start to like get so hot. I was like burn my fingers.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the next level we're going to be seeing with Qi 2. Sorry, I'm getting my keys and my cheese confused. Is adding that kind of capability to keep your power cool. And we saw quite a lot of demos of that and new devices with that at IFA. But yeah, lots to see. If you want to catch up more on some of the other gadgets, there's a whole story stream over on theverge.com with everything that we saw out there. And
check
it was fun
out. That's awesome. Yeah, and you came back with your health, which is great as well. All right, we'll take a little break so I can tell you about BetterHelp, who are sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. Here's a question. What is something that you would love to learn? Maybe it's about baking or gardening or a new language, or maybe how to finally beat your best friend at chess. Well, as an adult, I wonder if you make time to learn new things as often as you'd like, or was that something that maybe you lost in childhood? Kids, they're always learning, always growing. They're sponges, but as adults, we sometimes lose that curiosity. Therapy can help you reconnect with that sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at any time. I remember actually talking to my therapist who I go to online, and I had mentioned that, I haven't been doing any crafts in a long time. And when I have done it, I'm not really feeling joy from it like I was before. And we were able to kind of look into that and figure it out, pull it apart, see what else was going on there. Therapy has been incredibly beneficial to me, to my friendships, relationships, and my day-to-day. And I have a therapist who I go to online. So you can find a good therapist without that classic lay on a sofa in a quiet room situation. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, to be flexible, and for those of us who, have things to do during the day, suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. That's huge too, knowing that you can find a therapist that is compatible with you and not worrying about needing to make that switch, because it can be really pricey if you're doing it in person and you have to switch and switch and switch and switch. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/TNW today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TNW. And we thank BetterHelp for their support of this show. All right, back from the break, and I've got a quick little story here. I wanted to mention there's a new social network that has cropped up, and it is called SocialAI, speaking of AI. And SocialAI is a social network where you and you alone are the sole human who is participating in the social network. What happens is you kind of tweet, post, whatever, to your social network, and the responses and engagement that you get are from completely AI-generated beings or personalities, I guess. You can choose your followers. So, like, what kind of followers do you want? Do you want supporters, realists, debaters, intellectuals, thinkers, trolls, optimists, haters, oddballs, doomers? You have the choice of what kind of different followers you want. And the whole thing is private to just you, according to SocialAI. So whereas there have been a few, in fact, I think it was Amanda Silberling and I who talked about a different social network where you created a sort of persona and you could interact with this character and then interact with other characters, but other actual human beings were also part of the social network. This is not that. You are alone, but you're not alone. And it's an interesting idea that you kind of, instead of a journal, right, where you are collecting your thoughts, writing down your notes, whatever it happens to be, and instead you are putting those thoughts out there, but getting feedback where you may feel, on a traditional social media network, like you're lost in a sea of obscurity. And that's what social AI seems to be trying to address. But I wanted to open this up, Jennifer. I was kind of thinking about this, and there's a part of me that had this moment of, I guess, a comparison to, this has to be somewhat close to what our historical rulers had by way of power and money, because they had like their court, right? And so they had these people who would interact with them.
Sycophants.
Now, all of us get to be kings of our own systems. There's something interesting there. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, my first thought was, this not social because you're not interacting with anyone. So it sort of felt like a bit of a misnomer, but it also seemed a little wacky. I was trying to think, why would I want to use this? And I thought long and hard about it. I could see this being useful as like a testing ground, maybe, if you want, especially for social media managers, like people that do a lot of work with social media, using this to kind of like try and sort of gauge what kind of responses they might get. But it also seems like it's incredibly tailored and sandboxed. I mean, we did a piece on The Verge where a lot of our reporters tried it out, and all of the responses seem to be kind of similar, or like similarly structured. And they never managed to get them to say anything mean about anyone.
Oh, wow. Even the trolls weren't saying
even
anything
the troll ones were, or they'd say mean things, but not about you. Like there would never be like a personal attack. So it feels, like a bit of a utopian society, maybe. But I like your comparison there to sort of feeling like a king or a queen, and these are your subjects, and you can just sort of get the feedback without any fear of getting any
you get
sort
to have
of negative
sycophants, right?
Yes.
Because think about that. That's a sort of elitist thing that most people will never gain access to. Yeah. And when I think about the people today who mostly have that, it's very, very, very wealthy people, billionaires who, in many cases, surround themselves with sycophants. And to be clear, yes, there are people further out who attack them, but they don't have to hear those people if they don't want to. And so it's kind of fascinating to think about access to that ego building mechanism that is royalty almost. I don't know. I know this is not like an art project that this person was doing where that's the secret underlying, but honest, it was this morning where I had that thought where I was sitting there going, can I think of, because the immediate reaction that I have, and the reaction I think a lot of people have, is this is so sad. This is just a way for people to never interact with other people, and to talk to no one. And that is true. Like, that is sad. And there's honestly an epidemic of loneliness that people talk about. And so I was just trying to think of, is there any possible other take to have with this? And then that's whenever I went along that thread of like, if you want to get the idea of a little bit of what it's like to be a ruler who you can off with their head anybody if they say something you don't like, this is kind of like that. You just get a bunch of people hyping you up because they know better.
Well, and actually what I think is really interesting about it is the new format, for interacting with AI. And I think the piece that you shared sort of talks about that it's, we've just got chatbots right now. We may have the voice assistant soon. I know there's a lot of hope that we're going to have a better Siri, a better Alexa, and Gemini's there, Google Assistant. But this sort of new way of interacting with AI, rather than it just being a single kind of device talking back and forth, and having more of a conversation almost with other personalities as opposed to just a single AI personality. I think that is quite interesting, being able to maybe use some of those tools in more interesting ways, rather than it just being this one type of AI. I thought that was kind of something that I'd be interested in exploring if I did decide to try this out. But yes, my first thought was, this is kind of sad.
Yeah. Honestly, it is. It is a little sad. But I also kind of think it's an interesting thing to play with. But yeah overall, it is. It's a bummer. What else is a bummer is that we've run out of time here today. So I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. Of course, folks can head over to theverge.com to check out the great work that you're doing. How else should they follow you to keep in touch?
Yeah, that's the best place. I'm also on Threads at Smart Home Mama. And I also have a few videos over on the TikTok. So yeah, come find me there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks. Bye.
All righty, folks, we're going to take a quick break before we come back with our first of two interviews. Patrick Holland of CNET is here, but I want to tell you about 1Password, who are sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. Another question: do your end users always work on those company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? Nah, of course they don't. So how in the world do you keep your company's data safe when it's actually sitting on all of those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has your answer. It's called Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems that traditional IAM and MDM just can't touch. So let's sort of come up with this metaphor here. You imagine your company's security is like the quad of a college campus, beautiful brick-lined paths that run between the buildings. Those are those perfect company-owned devices, those protected and IT-approved apps, and those managed employee identities. But here's the problem with those brick-lined paths. They're not the quickest way to get from point A to point B, or for your employees to do the task that they need to do. And your employees, much like the students walking along the campus, are going to find the shortcuts. Those are the paths that people actually use, those shortcuts that are worn through the grass. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, and the non-employee identities, like contractors. Most security tools that are out there only work on those beautiful brick paths. A lot of security problems, though, they take place on the shortcuts. 1Password Extended Access Management, extended access, get it, is the first security solution that brings all these unmanaged devices, apps, and identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It's security for the way we work today, and it's now generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, and in beta for Google Workspace customers. Check it out at onepassword.com/twit. That's PASSWORD.com/TWIT. Twit. Thanks so much to 1Password for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, we are back from the break, and that means it's time for the first interview here. Joining us to talk about the brand new iPhones is Patrick Holland of CNET. Welcome, Patrick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on. So you had the chance to spend a week with the new iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max models. I'd love to hear kind of your first and initial impressions, the unboxing experience, as it were. Anything that stood out, I can imagine there's at least one thing, in comparison to just last year's models.
Wait, I want to know what you think would be the thing that stands out, because there could be two things, really. I'm
thinking it's probably that button on the side, or sorry, not a button, that control on the side.
No, it is a button. So, okay, so this is the 16 Pro Max, and instantly you're going to be like, whoa, it looks just like the one from last year. And you start turning it around, and you do notice that there is a little more, there's a button here, which we'll talk about in a moment. And something else, it's hard to notice just from seeing it casually, but the screen's a little bit bigger. You get a little more real estate there. There's a thinner bezel around the front. And it's something that's like maybe not a first impression, but after a few minutes, you're like, oh yeah, it does look a little taller. They're a little heavier, actually, especially the smaller one. But yeah, the big change is going to be that camera button. It is a button. It's like a combo button trackpad haptic thing with sapphire crystal on it because it's Apple. And when you push it, if I push it once, it'll open the camera up. There we go. And if I push it again, it would take a photo, and I could push long, it records. And then there's a couple other cool settings, but the big feature for this is called visual intelligence. Well, it's not out yet. So there you go.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So that's right. On top of the camera control, which Apple is avoiding calling a button, but is definitely a button. I forgot that it's got a sort of a postural improvement in terms of the screen being a little bit taller there. So one thing that stood out for me immediately with your review was that you talked about one of your favorite iPhone features in years. You mentioned that 4K slow motion video is the best new feature. Tell us a little bit about that, why you found it so impressive, and maybe what you're taking slow-mo videos of that's so great.
Well, I mean, what's the saying, like everything looks better in slow-mo? For the most part, I think that's true. But just the fact that we had slow-mo on phones is just kind of insane, especially as someone who's came up through as a young filmmaker, like shooting short films and all this. But there's always was a big gulf between if you shot a regular video and needed that slow-mo of your friend doing something funny. And maybe if there was good light, that slow-mo video might look good. What's so impressive about this slow-mo is the difference between it and a regular video is hard. It's hard to tell the difference. It's so good. The image quality looks outstanding. Even in medium lighting, I got to test this at a lion dance rehearsal here in San Francisco inside this warehouse. It wasn't well lit, and the footage just looked tremendous. And I'm doing all this on a phone that makes phone calls that lets me scroll on TikTok, and yet I'm also able to shoot this epic cinematic like 4K footage. And I think the image quality is really what drew me to it. It's so impressive. Do lots of people buy phones for slow motion? No, I will admit that. But for a lot of people who go for the pro models, especially ones who want to maybe dabble in film or be the family photographer, this is such an amazing upgrade. And it's actually on the phone out of the box. It's not something that's going to be upgraded in October. So you can actually try it out day one.
Yes, that's awesome that we're not waiting for that. And, speaking of the slow motion video capability being one of your favorite features, I was hoping you could just talk about camera improvements overall. What was your experience with the adjustments, the updates that have been made to the camera, where I know that Apple Intelligence and the stuff that you talked about there is kind of more of the focus, if you'll accept the pun, later down the road, but surely the cameras still are better than we've had.
Yeah. And so here's what's weird. So we have like the two phones, and for this year, both the smaller one and the bigger one have the exact same cameras. Now, if I've been mostly using the small one, and what's interesting about this is on the back, none of these cameras were on the old one, right? We have now the 5X telephoto. It replaces the 3X telephoto on last year's 15 Pro. We have that brand new ultra wide, which is pretty outstanding. And the main camera has a faster sensor. And now most people are like, oh, a faster sensor, what does that do? But it's allowing things like that slow-mo. It's allowing more data to be processed computationally to do things like extend the dynamic range or have better texture and detail, things in low light. So on the 16 Pro, for the most part, 3 out of the 4 cameras, not including the selfie, are brand new, which is outstanding. And the ultra wide camera is now a step closer to the main camera. It's still not, you could tell the difference if something was taken with the ultra wide and the main camera, not just because of like the perspective or the field of view, but in terms of image quality, the ultra wide is still a little more punchy. It has a nice contrast to it, but it does look a little bit different than the main camera. That being said, I love taking ultra wide photos on this phone. They're so good. There's such a good resolution. And that also applies to macro photos or if you're taking food photos, because your phone will automatically switch to that ultra wide to get a better focus for something close up, whether you're shooting like your favorite risotto or just trying to get a really cool texture like off of like a piece of fabric that someone's wearing.
Awesome. So let's talk about that camera control button a little bit more. What are some of the key functions? How does it enhance the user experience? And something that I think has been very important to me is, have you felt overwhelmed by it at all? Does it do too much? And what's the kind of learning curve for it?
No, these are great questions. So I won't go through every way to open a camera, but even before this button existed, there was at least 5 different ways you could open a camera on your iPhone. And I would argue we might not need another button. But yeah, I would say if you're holding your phone like this to take a photo and you're right-handed, this is a great button. And even if you are taking a vertical photo and right-handed, also a great button. For someone like me with big hands, it does get buried in my thumb sometimes. The other interesting thing about it is, again, I think the visual intelligence is supposed to be the star of this button, because the camera stuff it does is great. It's fun. But like I said, I can open the camera with the action button. I can open the camera with the on-screen button. So it did take a little get used to. I had to take the camera off the home screen to get used to opening it with that. And that's just a new habit, right? As far as once I had it open, so I don't know if when you take like a one-handed photo, especially if it's horizontal, I kind of hold my phone like this. Mm-hmm. And my finger right now is right on top of that camera control button, for better and worse. So I can tap it to open the camera. But sometimes if my finger was sitting there while I had the camera app open, that little menu would pop up and be a little bit of a distraction there. Mm-hmm. So the other thing is, this is you could like kind of slide your finger to scroll on it. This button will be able to be used by other photography apps, but not any other apps. I mean, this is perfect for like scrolling, imagine on like Instagram, or you're swiping through TikTok. It just seems like you have this like kind of, I think I called it like a 2024 version of the BlackBerry scroll wheel. Like It's right here. It's just not being used that way yet. So, but I do think it's an interesting addition. I think what I like about it most is it's flush. There's a million Android phones that have something similar and it's always stuck up. So if I am putting my phone into like a tripod mount or something, sometimes the grip of it would push like the other Android buttons down, but this is flush. It doesn't push it down. You also don't have access to it though.
That's true. But yeah, I didn't think about that, but I do use different tripods, clamps and stuff. So this is good that that's not going to get in the way. When it comes to the part where you can swipe through stuff, how quickly do you feel like you caught on to what was where and how to do that? Because I mean, it's like you press it part of the way down, you press it all the way down, you do this, you do that. It seems like it can, even though it's just for camera controls, it can do a lot. Did you feel like the onboarding experience, I guess, was simple or not?
The onboarding experience, I would say, was straightforward, but it did take a little while to get muscle memory. It's kind of like learning a new way to, I don't know how to say it without saying it this way, touch your phone, because it's not like a long press. It's not a full tap. You're kind of doing like this, like I call it like almost like a pulse. Like if I were just to put my finger on the back of your hand and just kind of like lightly push down, you're doing that to trigger up this menu. And then the rest of it's like swiping. We know how to do that. But yeah, it took a little while. I think Lisa Edichica, who was reviewing the regular iPhone 16, like the first day, or like we'd go there to like turn it, like open it and show people what it was. And it's like, we're all over the place, right? We can't get the media to show up. We're zooming, we're trying to change the aperture. So it did take, there was a bit of a learning curve, not only in practice of using it to open the camera and take the photo to begin with, but especially that menu. I will say, so they have photographic styles on here. Being able to swipe through them and not interrupt kind of like a photo that you're trying to line up or take was fantastic. And it actually made me want to use more of these photographic styles, which have, I think, improved from what they had previously.
Got it. I have a couple more questions that I want to get to, but we are going to take one quick little break before we come back, and I'll ask those questions. I want to tell you about our next sponsor, which is Veeam, who's bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. Without your data, your customers' trust turns to digital dust. That's why Veeam's data protection and ransomware recovery ensures that you can secure and restore your enterprise data wherever and whenever you need it. Veeam is trusted by more than 77% of the Fortune 500 to keep their businesses running when digital disruptions like ransomware strike. On October 1st, you can join Veeam, the global leader in data resilience, for the 2024 Veeam On Data Resilience Summit. A world without data is one that grinds to a halt, but data resilience organizations don't let the threat of cyber attacks or disruptions define them, because they put the plan, the expertise, and the solutions in place to keep their businesses running no matter what. When you join the virtual Veeam On Data Resilience Summit, you'll learn the industry's leading playbook to keep your data safe, protected, and available, keynote-worthy news about Veeam's latest product updates, how to take full control over where and how your data is stored, and the best practices from data resilience experts who are leading the way. Go to veeam.com/summit veeam.com to register and join for free online. And don't miss the Veeam On Data Resilience Summit on October 1st. We thank Veeam for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, we are back with Patrick Holland of CNET, who is joining us to talk about the new iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max. I wanted to ask you about Apple Intelligence. Of course, it was a huge part of the iPhone event and announcement. It was a huge part of WWDC before that. Now we're seeing Bella Ramsey appear in ads touting some of the new features of Apple Intelligence, but a lot of that is not available at launch, and even the stuff that is going to be available, not the features that are being advertised, which are coming in the coming months. So what features were you actually able to test? And then maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's to come.
Yeah, so this is where we kind of get into kind of like two different realities. I feel like it's a Marvel film all of a sudden. So there's the iOS 18 universe on the iPhone 16 Pro that we have. And this does not have Apple Intelligence. It has a lot of cool other features. Believe me, there's a lot of neat things in iOS 18, but it doesn't have it on there. Then Apple gave us kind of a thumbs up to try out Apple Intelligence on the review phone. So this particular one has iOS 18.1. It's a developer beta. And I feel like I'm breaking some news here on the show. Right before we went on, Apple dropped the public beta versions of iOS 18.1 that does have Apple Intelligence. Yeah. So even in this beta, it does not have things like the ChatGPT integration. It doesn't have Genmoji. It doesn't have image playgrounds. But there are a handful of tools. And probably the biggest one, I'll see if you can see it on camera here. If I push and hold the button here, you could probably see I get my rainbow Siri glowing animation, and Siri is there. And Siri's powered by Apple Intelligence. I can stumble, I can mumble, maybe not mumble, but I can stumble, change my thought, and Siri's able to follow it. I can ask follow-up questions. Siri's able to respond to that. So pretty basic stuff, nothing that's like revolutionary, I would say. Yeah. You have writing tools that we've seen in many other both phone AI, but also things like ChatGPT that are similar. They can change like your style. They can proofread your text. I think my favorite feature has been the summarize tool. So I can use that for summarizing a news story. I also get little summaries for like if I'm on like a group text thread and there's been a lot, it'll just give me a little summary of like what happened there. And probably the most impressive like AI thing is in photos. I have this thing called the cleanup tool that I can, maybe if someone's in the background of a photo bombing, I can remove them. And it does a pretty good job. I would say it's pretty much on par with what Samsung and Google does. But Apple doesn't go that next step with like, let's replace the whole background with confetti or like popcorn or whatever. So, yeah.
All right. So,
but you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
No, I'll pass. So let me round things out here because we are running out of time. I would just love to hear, because of course you talk about the pros and the cons of the new iPhones. What are some of the drawbacks that you've seen with this? And then lastly, who do you think would benefit most from upgrading to these new devices?
I think one of the biggest drawbacks right now is, I walked past a sign that had the Apple iPhone 16 Pro, Apple Intelligence. I go in that store tomorrow to buy it. I'm not getting that. So I think that is a drawback. I think there are going to be people, I don't know how many people are buying the phone for Apple Intelligence, but you're not getting it right out of the box. Hopefully we'll get it in October, as Apple said. I also think for $1,000 for the smaller one here, you only get 128 gigabytes of storage. And I reviewed a Motorola phone that cost $300 and came with 128 gigabytes of storage. I would say even without the 4K video or 4K slow motion, you're going to need more than 128 gigabytes on your phone, especially if you're holding on to it 2 or 3 years. The other thing I would say as far as like, who's this for? This is not for someone who's coming from an iPhone 14 Pro or even an iPhone 15 Pro. This is going to be, I would say if you have an iPhone 12 Pro or older, this is a fantastic upgrade. There's so many things you get: better screen, better cameras. You're getting a faster processor, bigger battery. I think if you have an iPhone 13 Pro, you're kind of on the fence there. If your battery like is not at full capacity anymore, this is a great phone to upgrade to. But if your battery is doing okay, I think save the money. I think the iPhone 17 Pro might offer a little bit more. So that's my buying advice.
Thank you for that advice. And thank you so much for stopping by to show us the new iPhones, as well as tell us everything and bless us with that great bit of Lego art on your wall. We appreciate it. Patrick, of course, folks can head to cnet.com to check out your work. Is there anywhere else they should go to keep up with what you're doing?
You can follow me on most socials. You'll find me either at Trick Holland, TrickHolland, or directed by Patrick. I used to be a theater director, but that's a whole nother interview.
That is indeed that I'm going to have to do in the future, it sounds like. What's his favorite musical? Thank you so much for your time today, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you so much.
All righty, folks, we do have a great interview coming up in just a moment with a familiar face, but I have to take one quick break before we get there so I can tell you about CashFly, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. For more than 20 years, CashFly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving more than 5,000 companies in more than 80 countries. At Twit, we have been using CashFly for more than a decade, and we love the lag-free video loading, the hyper-fast downloads, and of course, the friction-free site interactions. With CashFly, you've got the only CDN that's built for throughput, ultra-low latency video streaming that delivers video to more than 1 million concurrent users, lightning-fast gaming that delivers downloads faster with zero lag, glitches, or outages, mobile content optimization that offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site loads faster on any device, and flexible month-to-month billing for as long as you need with discounts for fixed terms. You can design your contract when you switch to CashFly. CashFly delivers rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs and allows you to shield your site content in their cloud, ensuring a 100% cache hit ratio. And with CashFly's elite managed packages, you're going to get the VIP treatment. See, your dedicated account manager is going to be with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation and reliable 24/7 support when you need it. So learn how you can get your first month free at cashfly.com/twit. That's CACHEFLY.com/twit. Thank you, CashFly, for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly, and of course, for bringing all of our listeners our shows. All right, we are back from the break, and now it's time for an interview I'm excited about because we are joined once again by someone who hasn't been here in a while, but will be a very familiar face to those of you who are Twit fans. It's Paris Martineau. Welcome, Paris.
Thanks for having me, Mikah.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
It's awesome to have you back. So I was pumped to see that you had actually written about a story that was top of the charts for all of the places where I go to look for news stories because Instagram announced something that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about for a while, trying to figure out, and also talking about the implications of announcing this feature, which are teen accounts. So yeah, there are now teen accounts. Can you give us kind of an overview of what this feature is and why Meta said, look, we're bringing this to the masses?
Basically, Instagram is putting teens in a protective bubble is what's happening. It's creating this new type of accounts for users under 18 that'll have additional restrictions and privacy protections. Meta says that it's to address concerns from parents about their children online, including that they see inappropriate content or have too much screen time or be connected with strangers.
Understood. So what are some of these key built-in protections that come with teen accounts, and how do they differ from, an account that I have or an account that you have?
The big one is that starting this week, all users who currently have an Instagram account and have said to Meta, I'm under 16 years old, they will see their accounts automatically set to private. So that means it's not publicly viewable. The teen accounts will also have restrictions on who can message them and what kind of content they can see. And that's specifically, teens will only be able to receive DMs from people they already follow. And when they're on, let's say like the Instagram Explore page, they won't see content that Meta is deemed as sensitive, like Instagram reels that discuss self-harm or show violence or things like that. And lastly, teen accounts will now have features designed to reduce screen time. Like every 60 minutes, a teen will see a pop-up that says, take a break. And at night, between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., teen accounts will auto-mute notifications.
Oh, wow. That reminds me of the Wii having that mode where it's like, hey, go outside. And then you go, I don't
A
wanna.
description that every tech company wants to hear. That reminds me of the Nintendo Wii.
I'm always available for marketing work. Meta, no. Meta does say that teens under 16 will need to have parental permission to change certain settings. I was curious to hear, like, how does this process work? And then what control do parents actually have over their teen accounts? Is this full on control? Is it sort of a give and take? How does this process work?
So basically, the accounts can work without any parental supervision, but if a teenager is 15 and under and they want to change any of the auto settings on there, they have to have parental permission. And how that works is basically a teen or a parent has to send an invite to one another to activate this. So if you're a teen, you send an invite to your parent's Instagram account, they verify, hey, that's my child, approve it, and then bada bing, bada boom, they're connected. At that point, the parent will have access to these sort of settings to turn on or turn off kind of the restrictions I mentioned. And they will also then get access to kind of some basic data about what the teen is doing on Instagram. Things like getting insight into who they're chatting with. Parents can't read like their messages, but they could see like the top 5 names of the accounts that the teen has messaged in the past 7 days. They could also set screen time limits or see topics that their teens are looking at. They could say, my teen's watching a lot of cat videos or seeing content about hiking. They could also block their child from using Instagram at certain times, say like from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. or something.
Got it. So that kind of describes the parental supervision features that pair with teen accounts. So when the teen account and the parental account, with our powers combined, they both get these special powers, so to speak, where the parent is able to view that. One big question that I had, based on my own habits of being a teen at one point, and that was not the habit, to be clear. That's just something I didn't have control over. But being a teen, the habit was to create an online account and say I was 47 or something.
Of course.
Of course. How is Meta planning to actually enforce the use of teen accounts, given the brilliance of teens?
So it's kind of multifaceted. Right now, if, a teen already had their maybe correct birthday in there, and then these new restrictions came out and they decided to make a new account, Meta will be able to flag that because it's kind of the same device and connected maybe to their same Facebook thing. And they will require the teen to either show ID to be able to make the new adult account or upload a video selfie that Instagram will then use their face-based age prediction tool on. And that is, I guess, something.
I'm just imagining some Elmer's glue in the right places.
Yeah. You start doing old age makeup.
Yeah. It's like, I'm really good at old age makeup. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Apparently, this has been in effect for quite a while with Facebook dating, although I don't know how relevant of a data point that is because who's really trying to use Facebook dating? Yeah, I don't know. Apparently there is, and they've been using age verification in that way on that. What it is going to do, though, is if a teen has an account already that says they're 47, Facebook has a bunch of AI-enabled features running in the background that is going to try and see if users are teens based on their usage of the platform. Say, it could be as simple as if somebody says, New York Middle School District 3 in their bio, that might flag as being a child.
So not if I say Riz a lot, that's not.
I mean, it could be that too.
Oh no.
Meta has said that they're still kind of working out the kinks on this and they don't expect to get it right every time. But if they, get something wrong, adults can easily appeal by either showing ID or doing a verification thing to kind of get back around it. So it's going to be a bit of a work in progress, I think.
I think that's really cool, though, because I feel like in the past, companies have made the choice to say the onus is not on us to determine the age other than it's the same thing as like if you go to a place and you are trying to get alcohol and you're underage, right? If they ask you for your ID and you present one, it's kind of that person's choice whether they really look at the ID and try to see if it's fake and, blow hot air on it and hold it up to by handing over the ID. That's kind of where the onus stops for the person. So I like to see Meta taking more initiative here and saying, we're not just going to leave it at, okay, it's just if the teen decides to lie to us, then oh well, they're actually trying to make sure that it's that it's real. That's cool.
It is a definite policy shift from them. And it's interesting because in all of their announcements and documents about this, they say, oh, it's a definite policy shift, but we want to be clear. We still think that the best way to handle this, the onus shouldn't be on us. It should be on Apple and Android, who should verify IDs at the device level or operating system level. But we're doing this anyway, which I thought was an interesting caveat. That
is interesting. There's a lot there to unpack now. I never thought about it being done at the device level. I'll be honest with you. That's a whole another kettle of fish, as it were. So while I ponder that, I'll ask you the last question that I had for you, which is, I think a question a lot of people have. What is the timeline for the rollout of teen accounts? And is this something that's global? Is it just in the US? Is it in Canada? Is it, again, rolling out over time to different places? How is that going to work?
It's rolling out right now this week in the US. I'm not entirely sure on international because this in many ways is a response to US concerns from lawmakers. Right now, if you even look into Meta's kind of breakdown of these settings, they have special caveats for different states in the US that have passed extra restrictions. For instance, I believe Florida, Texas, and one other state, parents can request to delete their teen's account using this parental supervision, which is, I guess, something relating to recent laws passed in those states. So it's kind of a hyper-local response in many ways.
Interesting. And then again, that's another sort of policy shift relatively where we're seeing that hyper-local response because it kind of has to happen, versus the kind of because of the privacy laws in the European Union, then we're just going to kind of roll out privacy laws or our privacy will be the same across the board because it's easier. Now it seems like because everything's piecemeal enough, it makes more sense to do it based on the location. Otherwise, you could severely limit someone's account.
Yeah.
And
I assume also this is just a hypothetical or my thoughts on it, but I assume from a Meta perspective, it's probably cynically a good business decision to restrict something like this to the most pressing geographic areas, because for a company like Meta, much of their user growth and user growth priorities right now are young people, teenagers and young adults, and restricting that growth internationally whole cloth is a bit harder of a pill to swallow than just focusing on the US.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because where else there's a group that's shrinking and a group that's growing, and you want to get the group that's growing, not the group that's shrinking.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, Paris, I want to thank you so much for, climbing through this and helping us figure it out. I really appreciate it. Of course, folks can head over to theinformation.com to keep up with what you're doing. And of course, check out Twig This Week in Google every week. Is there any other place that folks should go to keep up with what you have going on?
I'm on X at Paris Martineau, and on Blue Sky at paris.nyc. And I'm on Twig every Wednesday. So follow along.
Thank you, Paris.
Thanks, Mikah.
And thank you all out there for listening. Our show publishes every Thursday at twit.tv/TNW. That's where you go to subscribe to the show in audio and video formats. If you'd like to get all of our shows ad-free, well, there's a way to do that. It's called Club Twit at twit.tv/ClubTwit. For just $7 a month, you get every single Twit show with no ads, just the content, access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra stuff you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show. Special Club Twit events get published there, and access to the members-only Discord server, a fun place to go to to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and those of us here at Twit. Tune in today at 2 p.m. Mr. Smith, no, not Mr. Smith, me, Mikah Sargent, goes to copyright school. Yes, that's right. We streamed the Apple event to the places that we normally do, which is everywhere but YouTube, because on YouTube, we always get it pulled down because Apple doesn't want us streaming their show there. Well, this time, Apple's lawyers came for us on Twitch and pulled our stream there. We got a copyright strike, and in order to get rid of that, we have to go to copyright school. So I'm going to go to copyright school and stream that whole experience live in the Discord. You can tune in to watch that today at 2 p.m., where I will learn what I suspect is the fact that my transformative work regarding that copyrighted content was indeed transformative and thereby okay and should not have been pulled down. Anyway, twit.tv/clubtwit. Check it out. We'd love to have you. If you'd like to follow me online, I'm at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Check out iOS Today and Hands on Mac later today. On Sunday, you can check out Hands on Tech. This Sunday is going to be featuring a new device making its way to me tomorrow. New devices, maybe, making their way to me tomorrow. And I think that's it and that's all. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.